Welcome to A Look on the Plus Side. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thanks for being with us. It's holiday season, so we're talking about holiday movies, and tonight we're talking about Disney's A Christmas Carol. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. It's called the Park Adventurers Club for more great content, and also make sure to give us a thumbs up or a like as it helps people to find us. And who's us tonight? Well, it's me and my good friend Charlie. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, you certainly picked this one out. This is the movie we're going to be talking about tonight. There have been many tellings of the classic Dickens A Christmas Carol, but the one we're going to be
hmm
talking about tonight is Disney's A Christmas Carol. This was a 2009 movie starring Jim Carrey and using the Image Movers uncanny valley process of mocap. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that. I hope we are. I mean, we didn't
hmm
I didn't vet any of your questions, so I'm sure I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But you said researched up. You're ready to go. You've read the book, which I
hmm
can't even, I've never even touched a copy of A Christmas Carol unless it was like some Barney's Christmas Carol or something that my kids were reading when
Yeah.
they were little. But tell me what kind of stuff you've done in researching for this one.
Yeah, so I've probably seen upwards of 20 different versions of A Christmas Carol. It's just
Wow.
one of my favorite stories. I read the book every year. I try to read it every year. Sometimes it's every other year around the holidays. I wrote a really big paper, not, a sizable paper on the secularization and co-opting of religious holidays when I was in college, and kind of framed it around A Christmas Carol because it really was the starting point for Christmas as we know it. Christmas came from A Christmas Carol, and what we see in the book was like an idealized version of what Dickens had hoped we could get to, but it wasn't what was celebrated in 1843. So he created this holiday, and everything we have since then, all the way down to the Coca-Cola Santa Claus, is all because of this book. So it's a very important book. I was mentioning to someone that I was going to be on this, on A Look on the Plus Side, the other day, and talking about the book, and I said that it's probably the second most influential and important book in our modern world next to the Bible, because it made the largest amount of change to our society and our economy with its publication.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm ready for some schooling. I know that when we talked about Ice Age, you put me in my place as far as the dinosaurs versus what we were actually talking about, which is
Yeah.
fine. I'd like tell me when guide me. That's why I love having you on because you've got all this breadth of knowledge. So I would love to hear all about that. But also, Santa is my boy. He is real, and so I depending on where you're going with this, I'm very confused. But you mentioned that like there's multiple tellings of A Christmas Carol. Last week,
hmm
Stephanie and I did the Mickey and the Very Many Christmases. And during that, I
hmm
said there's like a handful of tropes when it comes to Christmas specials and movies. And there's retelling A Christmas Carol, retelling The Nutcracker. There's somebody doesn't believe and they have to, get back belief. And then there's the
hmm
saving Christmas. Christmas is in peril in some way, shape, or form, and we need to save Christmas. Like those feel like sort of the major kind of tropes of Christmas.
hmm
Very, very similar to how Hallmark movies, all the Christmas movies all
Yeah.
have that same kind of a thing. So there's been a ton of them. I will say this, and unless you kind of can convince me otherwise, this is not my favorite version of this, and I bet it's more true to the original. But I will say that hands down, the Muppet Christmas Carol is my
I knew you were
absolute.
gonna say that.
And
That
we
was
talked about
that
it
was
when we
my
ranked all
favorite
the Muppet
for
movies.
years. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the power of Brian Henson. Like he made a great film, and Michael Caine and everybody involved, but like shepherding that production to be not goofy, but like it really does justice to the story without being ham-fisted, without being over the top, but it's also as much comedy as it has. It's very touching and it has a heart and soul. And I think that's it carried the same messaging without just being like, it's for kids, whatever, just cram it in there. Like it carried the same messaging, the same pathos through with Muppets. And I think, that's a testament to Brian Henson leading all of that
Well,
together.
and it ruined me for any other telling of it, because when Marley comes in to haunt Ebenezer, I'm thinking we're Marley and Marley. Like, I mean, like that's all I can think about. Or when he appears at the door knocker, I see Goofy's face. Or I mean,
Hmm.
it's like there are so many tellings of this. There's a Smurfs Christmas Carol. There's so many, and
Hmm.
and I think part of it is, yes, as you said, it's kind of like it sets a standard, but at the same time, it's also kind of a story of like, you know, faith and redemption, and really just kind of like seeing the good and finding the good, and celebrating the joy in life, but in this case in Christmas. But at the same time, it's a very dark and depressing story to tell
Hmm.
at the most wonderful time of the year. I mean, there's ghosts and
Well,
and hauntings and all that kind of stuff, and I do want to get into that. But before we do, let's
yeah.
look at the stat board, because I feel like whatever you're about to say is going to take us a while.
Okay.
So
It is.
so let's. I know you.
You know. You know.
So we always put the stat board up on here to be able to kind of like run through the numbers without just like splatting them out. And so the runtime on this is an hour 36 minutes. Honestly, I feel like we could have shaved some time off of this, because some of these things are stretched out a little bit more longer than I felt like they should be. But anyway, an hour 36 minutes is not a bad, I mean, 90 minutes is not a bad runtime. The release date was November 6th, 2009, which is great because not all Halloween and Christmas movies always come out around the holidays that they're supposed to, which is weird. PG rating, I would agree with, because, again, it is kind of a darker version telling of A Christmas Carol. The budget was $200 million. The box office was $325 million. And then the company is Disney and Image Movers. And again, before we get into the bulk of what you're going to say about A Christmas Carol, the book, the tellings, whatever, I want to recognize Image Movers, because that was the Robert Zemeckis company is Image Movers. He had Image Movers Digital, which was the company that made Polar Express. And then again, there's that whole Uncanny Valley animation mocap where you're not just like animating this like you would Toy Story with, Tom Hanks being the voice of Woody, but you've got Tom Hanks in, mocap dots walking around,
Hmm.
and it's this version of animation that Zemeckis was really into and wanting to expand with Disney, the company that, kind of heralded in animation as an art form. And so we've got, this movie, Mars Needs Moms, and they were both dismal at the box office. And they had others on slate. One of them was going to be a retelling of the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. I was at D23 when they rolled it out and said that was a thing they were
That's
going to do.
cool.
There was going to be a Roger Rabbit sequel that, because Zemeckis was involved with that, they were going to try to do something that maybe had 2D animation for the tunes and like a mocap for the rest of them, and they were like, nah, that's not going to work, and then they canceled that. There was something called Calling All Robots, but like all of these things were like, once these two movies, Mars Needs Moms and this Christmas Carol, were panned and also didn't do well at the box office, that they I think they were just like, let's shut it down. People don't want this kind of animation. So speak on that before we
Well,
go into into the
yeah,
story.
and I think also, so this came out what, November 6th, right?
I think it was November, yeah, 2009.
Yeah. So what came out a year or a month and 2 weeks later? Avatar.
Uh,
We were all really impressed with this animation style. We were like, this is great. You can do anything. It's so immersive. And then Avatar came out and we were like, oh, we were impressed by this a month ago. And that, I think that tanked it. I do. Like, aside from the fact that it's, and we'll get into this more in a minute about, it's a gothic ghost story that they tried to market as a kids movie, and like at one point Jacob Marley's jaw falls off, like it unhinges, and they try to inject some humor here and there, but like it's a ghost story. It's scary. I would say that this was written in the same vein as Frankenstein. And again, we'll get into this in a minute because I absolutely can make that correlation. But like, it's a ghost story. It's meant to be jarring and scary. And they marketed it as a kid's film. And they put Jim Carrey, who we're used to seeing as Ace Ventura. And you're like, this is going to be goofy for kids. And so, regular, adult audiences who probably would have loved this film did not want to go see it because they were like, he's just going to be goofy and over the top. But he, I think, handled Scrooge perfectly. I think he was so subtle and thoughtful in the same way. Like you think of Robin Williams as a comedic actor, but he can handle drama equally as well. I think Jim
Yeah.
Carrey is the same way. And I think between lots of those factors, it never quite got the traction leading up to it. And then Avatar came in and they were like, I'm not going to see this because everyone's going to see Avatar. It was a worldwide phenomenon. And that animation, like the budget on that was like 250 million, not that much more than this film. And
Right.
it's the highest grossing film of all time. And like it was fantastic to look at. However, like Jim Carrey, Gary Oldman did such a great job acting. And then we had Sam Worthington, who I think was awake for most of the film. Like Avatar was great, but Sam Worthington was absolutely not. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter who's behind the mask because it was so visually appealing. This one was not visually appealing as much as it was like great performances. So you really have to have already seen it to appreciate it. And I think that kind of led to a box office stumble.
Okay. Well, and again, like I said, I hate when things get like things get announced and then they get taken away from me. Whether it's a
Mhm.
land at Disneyland that's going to happen, or an attraction, or a movie that was going to happen that's not going to happen anymore. Just like the opportunity for what could have been is always a little bit disappointing for me in a lot of ways. And I think that honestly, like I like the Beatles, as much as the next guy. I'm not like a Beatles
Mhm.
fanatic, but I like the Beatles, and the Yellow Submarine movie would have been interesting. And then they were just like, oh,
Yeah.
we're not going to do that anymore. And so, again, I feel like this is something that could have been better, but I don't know that I loved the animation in general. But we'll talk about the animation after you tell me what was the other thing you were going to say when I was talking about this movie, or did you already say it?
So no. So this is of a time. Like it was written in 1843 in a matter of 6 weeks and published and released very quickly. And it had an incredibly short run because they were just trying to get it to press on time, and it sold out immediately. It was a phenomenon out of for what we now call Dickensian times. It was a phenomenon. It was his most successful book by far, and this is somebody who had already written bestsellers, and this one put those other ones to shame. Um, it's very much of a time. It's written for those sensibilities, and it's a commentary on the time in the same way that Mary Shelley was writing about when she wrote Frankenstein. It was look at these awful things that science can do when we get away from what we've been. We are letting science go too far. It's creating monsters, and look at this evil man. Dickens kind of flipped it on the other end of like Scrooge and everybody else in London is like, this is what the industrial age did. We don't really care about the surplus population. People are starving and kids are working. And, Scrooge was an extreme example of this, but he stands for the wealthy class and the Cratchits stand for the underclass. Like it was a commentary on the time, and he was writing this in hopes, or I would imagine, in hopes to get through to them because he came up very poor and only came into money because of his writing. So he was at heart, the Cratchits. He grew up poor. He had to work in coal mines and I think a boot black something or other, like a factory. So he was seeing it firsthand and using the tools of the time, making it this gothic ghost story, because we now think of Christmas as a time of happiness and joviality and all that. And at the time, it really wasn't. Christmas is the darkest time of the year. It's immediately after the winter solstice. So it's the longest nights of the year. It's very, very cold. Um, this is when it's got enough of that connection to the holiday that it took over of Yule, that it was a night where the veil was thin and spirits would cross over, kind of like Halloween. So that's why you see so many ghost stories around Christmas, and people long gone by, and all these miracles and everything are because the veils are thinner between the worlds, because everything is dark and we're afraid of the dark, and you have to bring back the light. So that's what all of these winter holidays are for, is to bring back the light, to chase away the spirits, and welcome the sun back, because after the 21st the nights start to get shorter and shorter. So whatever you do around that time is your ritual to say, hey, bring the sun back and let's go back towards summer, where we're safe, we have longer days and more prosperity and all that kind of stuff. So the only reason we think of this kind of happiness, joviality, connection to family, time off from work, all of that was only really because of this book. Because in 1842 and before, Christmas was just a day off from the factory. Like, maybe you'd go to mass, maybe you wouldn't, but it wasn't really a party. It wasn't something you kind of got together for. It was just a day off. It's like Martin Luther King Day, where it's like, yeah, we remember, or Lincoln's birthday, Jesus's birthday, whatever. Like, you just get a day off and you get to relax a little bit. But it wasn't a big festival. He wrote about it in the book to say, look what we could do. This is the Christmas that I hoped we would have in my memory. This was kind of what we could do. And what came out of that, everyone was like, wow, this sounds really awesome. And then Queen Victoria read it and she got obsessed with it. She brought in the Christmas tree and the stockings and all this stuff. And it, like, Christmas bloomed out of there and became something now that we still celebrate. It's the biggest holiday the world over. It drives our economy and everything. And there's one particular part in the book, and that they included in this version of the film, that hits the most. Do you know which part I'm talking about with this? Where the deepest connection to where this is a festival for the people. Scrooge is being flown around by the ghost of Christmas Present, and he's looking at the bakehouses, because people generally didn't have the cook facilities in their own home to be able to cook like proper
Right.
hot meals, right?
Yeah.
And he says, you would seek to close these kitchens every seventh day because that's connected to the church. And the Christmas Present says, stop. Those men of the cloth are doing their deeds of ill will in our name, and they're as strange to me and my kin as if they'd never lived. And like, I remember when I saw this in the theater, I was at a press screening for this, and they did like this whole big celebration and everything at the El Capitan in Hollywood. And like that, I had never heard that before. I've seen so many versions of this, but I had never heard that before. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, what a great line, because it's intentionally secularizing it. It's not about the church. He never mentions the birth of Jesus or anything. Christmas is a time of being nice to fellow man. It's almost taking it back to the pagan roots of community, rather than letting the church co-opt it. Yeah, this scene, it's, I think, the most powerful scene in the book. And that scene right there, I was like, there's no way that's in the book from 1843. And that's what started me on that research paper that I ended up doing for school, was because of that line. Like, it's so beautiful.
I didn't know what you were talking about, but you're right. That scene, I did put in my notes to talk to you about that scene, because I do think I was like, wait, did he just say that? Like, that's a big thing. You're right. And in that time to be saying something like that, and is like, you could have given an extra day, and then he's like, stop. Those guys don't speak for us. They're basically saying they're kind of crooks, and we don't want to be associated with them in any way. You're right. It is definitely a moment in there. It wasn't. I didn't wasn't tracking with where you were going on that, but it was definitely a
Yeah.
moment that stood out to me more so this watching, because again, when we go to watch for a look on the plus side, we really kind of dig in deep onto it more than we would. A lot of times you put on a movie and you just
Hmm.
like sit on the couch and like play Bejeweled or
Browse
whatever
your
the game of the
iPad. Yeah.
day is, and then you just kind of take it in a little bit. But I mean, I'm really scrutinized when we're watching these things, and maybe that's why like I love doing this, is that I pay more attention to the movie and go, wait a
Yeah.
minute, I've never thought about this before. I never thought about that before. And so
Yeah.
the other thing about that scene is that, and I want to get into the animation part of this now, is the process here, where instead of going through the world with this second spirit is using this very strange animation. Not anime. It's a stylized choice. It's not really an animation choice. It's a stylized choice where he makes the floor see through, so that he can see all of these things from where they sit rather than going
Hmm.
everywhere else. And so in doing that, he says, I'm giving you the view that like, a mere mortal would never see.
Hmm.
And he gets to see it. So he's holding on to his robe, and rather than holding on to his robe and, and flying through the air, he's holding on to his robe because he's getting like this sort of like simulator, like Universal Studios shake up of looking through the screen and seeing this. And I was just like, I didn't pay attention to what they were showing me and giving me this first time when I saw that. But there is a
Hmm.
lot that they do from an animation directorial standpoint that is probably more than we deserve in this movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
It's
get it.
smarter than I think that it should be, because I think we all got hung up on the uncanny valley. I keep saying that, but like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
the animation style of the characters, that I think we kind of lost out on, the things that they were coming up with as far as like different ways to present things, whether it was the shadow of the Ghost of Christmas Future,
Hmm.
or again this
That's my
view
favorite
is
shot in the film.
stunning,
Yeah.
absolutely stunning. um and so there are a couple things animation wise in this that blow me away, but they're all scenery. They're not
Hmm.
the characters, and the characters is probably what they spend more time on, because
Yeah.
but the actual like scenery in this is so gorgeous. And there's a one shot that they do in the beginning, from the point where he sees the little kids on the back of the carriage, and he calls them like
Hmm.
delinquents. They they
Delinquents.
they put the Jim Carrey's name underneath it, and they show him, and then they pan away, and for 3.5 minutes, it's one long shot, which, I mean, it's one thing to do that in camera when you're doing like something like that. Like you have to do one take. In this one, it's
Yeah.
animation, but at the same time, I never see that in animation. One take, 3.5 minutes long, and
Yeah.
it's while the introduction is happening, and then they get to that sign with Scrooge and Marley, and on that sign they let it wither, and the aging
Yeah. The
process. And
paint
as a graphic
chips. Yeah.
designer, I look at that and go, how did you wrap your mind around making that happen? Like
Yeah.
just the way that it crackles and the M falls off, and it's like 7 years later, like, and it's like,
Yeah.
what, like, and again, there's stuff like that that just blows my mind in this from a scenery standpoint. But the people and the animals, half of them kind of suck. I don't know if I can say that. Like the Jim Carrey one is pretty decent, and the like the attention to detail with like hairs on his nose and like his
Yeah.
teeth and the sparkle in his eye. It's like that's really good. Sometimes it's not. And then
Yeah.
the spirits. I don't know. You talk on the animation, but that was
Well,
something that like really struck me.
yeah, I agree. I mean, the uncanny valley is correct. That's where the majority of this film takes place. I think they did spend a lot of time building the world of 1843 London, and that really worked for the immersiveness, especially with like the stuff, there are some changes between the book and this, and it's mostly the things that are like covering lots of ground. So those, the fly through shot, or when he's like shooting up over the skies or being chased through London, we get to see so much of this digital set that they built, and it's fantastic. It's beautifully done, and it feels real and lived in and immersive. But the characters don't quite land. However, I see what they were going for, like the putting Gary Oldman as both Marley and as Bob Cratchit, having that connection. And of course, Gary Oldman can do a fantastic job in both, but like that's his partner, and he went and found somebody else who was just like his old partner. Like that kind of a connection was just little things like that that are nice little nods. And Jim Carrey being all the spirits, that it's
I got to tell
always
you
him, it's
though,
always his past.
the first time that I saw this, I don't think that ever dawned on me. And then I think I had
Oh,
to look
really?
it up. And what really got me is the first spirit, the spirit of Christmas past,
Mm-hmm.
looks a little bit and sounds a little bit like Colin Farrell, who is not in this movie,
Yeah.
but it's there's something about him, like he's got that like glimmer of like he's kind of mischievous, like Colin Farrell
Mm-hmm.
has like sometimes. And I was like, oh, that's probably Colin Farrell. And then when the Ghost of Christmas Present comes, it's very obviously Jim Carrey. The look
Jim
of the
Carrey, yeah.
character and the sound of the character, it's obviously Jim Carrey at that point. The Ghost of Christmas Future doesn't say anything. Now, they
Yeah.
credit him, Jim Carrey, as portraying that ghost, but he doesn't say anything. So I guess that could have been a mocap
Yeah, it's
situation.
all just mocap. He did all the mocap for all of this, and they
Yeah.
show, because he also did a couple of the other characters, because like who has the physicality but Jim Carrey, you know? So if they need to like in the same way they put Carrie Elways as a couple of the, you know, just people, but that you can also recognize his voice in several of the other bit parts that are one line here and there, but you're like, ah, that's clearly Carrie Elways again, because he's just a great voice actor. Jim Carrey is just great at moving, so he did a bunch of other, you know, various mocap pieces here and there. But like there was a making of featurette that they put out with the press of him doing the like quick hand movements and the big billowing motions and all that. So he did do it, even though there's not a lot you can get from that. I think that one's just a nice, like, oh, that was also him too. Like that's cool, but it doesn't really affect the performance, because they could have keyframed it and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah. Talking about this being a dark, dark movie, this bit at the end with like this, with the kids at the bottom,
Oh yeah.
what is it, ignorance and want, and then
Yeah.
the fact that the the ghost of Christmas present, the present is ending, and so he's dying, and it's just this dark death, like where he
Yeah.
basically turns to dust and bone, and it's like, wait a minute, like, and then they pan this part where they pan out, and like in these characters here, that this isn't what I was gonna say, but like they pan out and like you see like his bony like skeleton toes, and it's just like,
Hmm.
wow, yay, Disney's Christmas Carol. Yeah, you
Well, and
won't
I think
believe
that's
Disney's
like,
Christmas Carol.
it's, if it wasn't Disney, like if they had released it under Touchstone, I think it would have done better, because
You expected a kids
it's a
movie a little
horror
bit.
story. Yeah, this isn't an animated kids movie. It's an animated. It just happens to be a very heavily digital animated retelling of a classic gothic ghost story, in which the haves versus the have-nots are pit against each other, and the haves need to realize that they are all terrible and need to reform their ways before they die. Like that's what the story is about. And that's not really for kids. Like I was a little hesitant showing it to my kids because of moments like that. and
I was going
and
to
like
ask you if
he's
you
not.
had.
I did last year. I showed it to my 4-year-old last year, and he was interested in for a little bit, but he kind of fell off. Um, but this year, I'm going to show it to him again and see if he can kind of get in on it. I know he's not going to pick up on the deeper, parts of it. But you see, it's moments like this where it's like I don't know that a kid is really going to want to see that. So
Yeah.
I think it wasn't that it was marketed poorly. It's just all of the collection of players just weren't all rowing in the same direction. I think they could have been a little more clear about what this is and what we're going to expect, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that happens a lot. I think there were a lot of movies that Disney missed the mark on with marketing. And my litmus test was my wife, where I would be excited about something. I was excited about Oz Great and Powerful. I was excited about John Carter of Mars. I was excited about Tron
Yeah.
Legacy. I was excited about The Lone Ranger. And she would watch a trailer and go, I don't get it. Like, I don't get what it is, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you don't like? And so in doing that, I think, here's somebody who's kind of dialed in because I am, but at the same time is also like not. And so when she says that, I go, uh-oh. and
Yeah.
so, there are a lot of times where like Disney, I think, put out a good product. Atlantis, I think, was a good product, and
Yeah.
it doesn't get viewed, and it doesn't, and people don't watch it,
Yeah.
and the people who do watch it become like cult fanatics of it because they want to, like, that's their thing, and they
Yep.
want to represent it. This scene, though, in general, with the horses and the carriage, the stagecoach or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, or the coach, it's not a stagecoach, that's a Western thing, but the coach, I don't get it, because like maybe it's in the book, but like this is where I
Not
say
really.
you could have taken 5 minutes out of this movie right here, and it's very dark, which means maybe it wouldn't have been as scary. It's
Yeah.
also weird and very psychedelic in the fact that he's like being chased by these hell demon
Yeah.
horses, but then the coachman is like a coachman, but then he's the spirit of Christmas future,
Mm-hmm.
and then Scrooge is now all of a sudden he shrinks, and then he's like, well, why is he small now? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's very strange how it happens. And then the other thing is, for his age, he is getting beat to crap. And if he was
Oh
this
yeah.
small and he was doing all this, he'd be dead easily in this. I don't know. But it's like all of this is like beautiful, and it's interesting, I guess, but it doesn't further the story for me. It doesn't tell me
Yeah.
anything else. It just makes it a little more confusing, and honestly then makes it a little less interesting as a whole movie. So I feel like here you could have done that. I think that Marley's entrance was too long, because you're building up a little bit, because you're right, it's a ghost story. You want it to be a little scarier. You're building up, but
Mm-hmm.
it built up and built up and built up and built up, and I feel like the payoff could have been there sooner. I mean, it's like the whole thing. There's the creaking, and then there's the bells, and then there's like the shaking, and then there's the boxes come through the door, and then the chains come through the door, and then he eventually comes through the door, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
are you finally coming through the door? There's some things like that I just felt like went on too long.
Yeah. I liked the Marley one because I think it set up the rest of the film, but the other ones, like the um, Christmas future sequence, that whole sequence could have been trimmed, and it would have had maybe even a more of an impact, I think, because he goes from, okay, conduct me where you will, and let's go. Time is precious to me. And then Christmas future, he's running away from, because he already knows living a life like this is going to have consequences in the future, and he's running away from that consequence. And that in the book, he just moves through it, and he just runs away and falls through the shadows and stuff like that. So there's that sequence, the flying room sequence with Christmas present, and the uh, at the end of Christmas Past when he puts the cap on and shoots up through the sky. Those three sequences were added by Zemeckis to give it some life. So it's not just an old guy standing around talking about being sad for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That gave it some motion. That made it appealing to the kids. It got shots for the trailer. But all three of those sequences, I think, could have been downsized dramatically. As cool as the flying room was, all of them could have been downsized dramatically, and we wouldn't have lost any meat of the film.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that last one is the most damning of the three. It's just not a great sequence.
By the way, Yeah, as he's getting shot up in the air and over the moon, and I'm just like,
Hmm.
why? Um, the
Just for the trailer.
when we see Fezziwig, again, I'm thinking Fozziwig,
Hmm. Fozziewig.
um, because I can't
That's probably
not
the best casting of any role in the history
ever.
of time. Fozzie as
In,
Fozziewig. That's
yeah,
no notes.
no notes. This character right here. Now, again, as we have all these tellings, and see what I'm saying, it kind of like looks a little bit to me like, you can see Colin Farrell in that, right? Maybe, I don't
A
know.
little bit, maybe.
Maybe because it's Jim Carrey, it's a
I
little
got it from the
distracting for you.
voice, but the face, I can't even really see Jim Carrey in it. It just looks too weird digital. Like it's hard for me to lock down that it's a human face in there.
Yeah, but this is where I'm like, okay, that could totally be Colin Farrell. I don't know why.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know
okay.
why. I don't know why. But there are, it's always different in the tellings of, like, we just talked about the Muppets, about who represents the different spirits. I feel like the spirit of Christmas Present is usually pretty on the nose. It's like a Bacchus kind of like character with the with drink and enjoying the present, and the robe and the crown and all that. And then usually in
Hmm.
the future it's death, it's the dark, and it's all that. The Christmas past is the one that is always all over the place. And when I saw this one, I
Yeah.
was like, is this from the book? Because
Yes.
it's like, okay, because it's like Lumiere be our victim.
Yeah.
Um,
And well, and that's, I think, you were saying about the face in the book, the candle doesn't really have a face, and when he looks into the candle, he sees the faces of all the people that he's wronged and left behind, and they kind of have that sequence at the very end where he's like confronting the ghost of Christmas past, and it just, the face turns, to everybody that we've seen in this chapter of the film. But in the book,
yeah,
it's not like, oh, this is a face and I'm looking into his eyes and whatever. It's more just like, this is a candle that kind of has a face made of fire, but when you look into the flame, you're looking into the eyes of all the people that you've left behind. And so there's like, it's a concept. There's no way to animate that, so they had to put a face to it. But I think for what it is, this is the closest one that we've had, because it's usually a little girl, whether it's a stage adaptation or that creepy thing that came out of the Ark of the Covenant that they used in Muppets. Um, like it's usually a little girl or Jiminy Cricket or something like that, something small and unintimidating.
yeah. Here's the face thing you're talking about.
Yeah, and it just transfers from one face to the next.
Yeah. Let's break for a second and talk about the cast for this one, because yes, we've talked about Jim Carrey was three voices, and who was the other one we were talking about? Gary Oldman was a
Gary
couple, but
Oldman is two of them.
yeah, but Gary Oldman, Bob Hoskins, Colin Firth, Robin Wright, Jim Carrey. I mean, these are some,
Carrie Elways.
yeah, Carrie Elways. These are some pretty big players,
Yeah.
especially for that time, I feel like. And so I think that the cast was pretty well done. And I assume this was
Mm-hmm.
Zemeckis who was going, "Hey, come do my thing," and it's like, okay, we'll come do that. But you're
Oh
also
yeah.
asking a lot of these people, because they're gonna have to look a little silly.
Yeah.
When you look at the making of that is attached to the extras here, and you see, like,
Mm-hmm.
how they're like, this was a deleted scene that they show a little bit of Jim Carrey and him acting, and this was a Christmas caroler who was cut out of the scene, and you can see her here where they've kind of got her overlapped with some rough animation. But that's what they all had to do. And so the fact that you go in and ask somebody like, like a Bob Hoskins to come in at
Mm-hmm.
the finale of his career, by the way, because he got Parkinson's and was diagnosed with that. This was 2009. He was diagnosed with that in like 2012, and then passed away in 2014 of pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
So this was kind of one of the last things that he did. But
Yeah.
but those characters look just like them. Like, it's
Yeah.
definitely a shrunken down version of Gary Oldman sitting at that desk.
But I think they also he incorporated so much of the design and the art style of the original etchings of the first printing, like especially with Bob Cratchit, like the weird wide face and the hair around the sides, and like Scrooge in a certain angle at a certain light can be very pointed, but also very round and cherubic to be both the first etchings and the last etchings in the book. And like there's enough of it in there where it's like, yes, it looks kind of like real people. It also kind of looks like the actor, but it also looks like the etchings. Like he was trying to satisfy a lot of angles with this, and maybe that's why it led to the Uncanny Valley so hard.
Maybe, yeah. But I mean, like some of the secondary characters, like in the funeral scene at the beginning or the Undertaker scene, they
Mm-hmm.
look awful. They're bad. They're not good at all. And
Yeah,
yet the work that they put into Ebenezer is amazing, and it's off-putting.
yeah,
It's so good, kind of like a Ren and Stimpy. It's like off-putting. It's like just the grit
too
of
much of a
what you're
close up.
seeing. It's just too, yeah. It's just, and
Yeah.
then thinking of a human having that kind of a chin, but then thinking of like how Jim Carrey's chin is. But then, like,
Mm-hmm.
when we see young Ebenezer and his nose isn't quite as long, and he's not as nasty, and then he just kind of, as he becomes and I guess this is kind of part of the lesson here is as he becomes more obsessed with money and becomes more of a horrible person, he looks more like a horrible person. He is
Mm-hmm.
becoming what he is on the outside, what he is on the inside. Um,
Yeah.
one of the things, other notes that I made about this is I think that the acting is really good in this, and that and a lot of times when you're working with an original piece like A Christmas Carol, and I find this mostly in Shakespeare, as if I dabble in a lot of Shakespeare. Sorry, I'm not trying to be like all highfalutin or anything.
No, please be
I
fancy
watch
for us.
I watch much more Family Guy than I do take in Shakespeare, but that in watching a lot of Shakespeare, it's that they are reciting, and I could hear them reciting, and because they're reciting, it takes me out of it. In this one, it really felt like they were speaking this, not reciting this,
Yeah.
and emoting this, and not just reciting it or reading the lines. More so
Yeah.
than a bunch of other things that I've seen. And maybe that's just the caliber of the actors. Maybe that's because Zemeckis directed this himself and he knew exactly what he wanted.
Yeah. I think it is the Zemeckis writing and directing this. He knows this forward and backward, and being able to impart that to a great cast. And on top of that, like a lot of these lines, even though they were written in 1843, are verbatim from the book, because Dickens, if you, I don't know if you've ever read Dickens, but like talk about being able to trim the fat. Holy God. It like, Melville is unreadable because there's so much fat you can't get to the meat. Dickens, you can get to it, and there's just enough to care about where it's like you get one really great interaction. Then you get 8 pages on what the pot looks like that they were cooking his gruel in. And you're like, why am I here? I really want to quit. And then immediately after that, something awesome happens. So he gives you just enough, but like his dialogue is just so good and brief and pointed. He takes so much time to describe anything, but the dialogue is fantastic. And even for 1843, you could reprint it word for word, and they do in the movies. They use like a lot of the best lines in this film and every iteration come direct from Dickens. So having that, like, it's already a good source material with great dialogue, then a director who really understands it and makes it hit home, and a cast who's able to deliver that, and not just an actor because they're pretty. Like, these are all actors because they know how to act,
Yeah.
and people that have worked with Zemeckis in the past. So
And Dickens was
I think
famous
it
for
was
his
a
opening lines too, like to get your attention right out of the gate. Marley was dead for the
yeah,
start. Wait, what?
yeah,
Marley was dead
yeah.
to begin
he
with.
he
Yeah,
knows a
okay,
hook.
you have my attention. Yeah. So again, I think the animation, I lean toward those backgrounds being gorgeous. I think they did a good job in general, but like, there's some weirdness that they do artistically animation wise, like the shadow and the pointing where then like they kind of pan around. There's a lot directorially of like
Mm-hmm.
shots and how they're set up that I think are really well done. The acting, as I mentioned, I thought was pretty good. Let's talk about the music. Alan Silvestri did all the music, and then he and Glenn Ballard wrote the one song that Andrea Bocelli sings at the
Mm-hmm.
end. I mean, I think the music really, was great in the fact that they incorporated a lot of traditional Christmas songs that are being sung by the carolers or that are being sung at the party, or those kind of things, with
Mm-hmm.
Silvestri's like score, and a lot of it kind of, you can hear hints of like maybe God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen in what is Silvestri's like score, that
Yeah.
I think is really just like a nice touch. Like I feel like it's still that Christmas mode, and it makes this movie to me feel a little bit more Christmassy than some tellings, and especially when you're coming at it this dark.
Yeah, and I think that, in that mixing of jovial, Christmassy kids movie, animated movie, like a lot of the music that he has, a lot of the bigger themes and the swelling moments for the titles and everything are very jovial and very bright and appropriate for a fun, light kids film. But then he can also handle the dark, so he weaves with the movie as it goes up and down. But I think also, as great as the music is, like he could also have picked a direction. Like both the film and the marketing and the music could all just pick a direction, and then we know, okay, this is a ghost story, or this is a fun kids version, or whatever, and it would have been a little
So
more marketable to the masses.
the thing that I like is the thing that you think gives it lack of direction.
Yeah, I mean, as
I
a
don't. I mean,
creative
I don't
endeavor, it's
disagree.
great. Yeah, it's I think there's the difference. There's a creative endeavor, and there's a movie that we want to make our money back on. And those two don't always mesh. And I think that's the story of this film.
So let me give a caveat here that I don't normally talk about with these things. So again, we're talking about the quality and the animation. We're talking about the cast. We're talking about the music, but the sound. The sound I really noticed in this, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it was strong. Him walking up the stairs and the creaking of the stairs, his
Mm-hmm.
spoon across the pot of gruel as he's like, kind of wisping it around, the crackle of the fire was very obvious to me. And maybe it's because some of the moments were very quiet, and then
Mm-hmm.
that was supposed to put you in some sort of a mode or a mood. But I think that the sound, I can't decide whether the sound was great because of how much detail they did, or whether it wasn't because I noticed it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't think I noticed it as much as you did, but now that I'm thinking back to it, like it is a really rich sounding film. They're very forward with all the Foley, and I think that is something that didn't strike me as much as I guess it did for you. Um, so for me, it just kind of blended in. And I agree with what you're saying. I don't know if I should notice it. Good sound effects are ones that you don't take notice of, just like good lighting. You only notice it when it's bad. And so
Right.
I guess it kind of resonates on both. Of like, if you're hearing it and you're saying this is really great, I didn't even notice it. So either way, they did their job.
A lot of times I will put on like headphones and watch TV while my wife is sleeping because I stay up until way too late. And
Too
so
late.
when I do, sometimes I'll hear things that I don't usually hear when I'm watching a movie or a show because of I'm wearing these like nice Bose here, not or Beats headphones. And
Hmm.
so in those particular cases, I do notice sound. And I mean, I
Yeah.
think about like all of those old like Disney Jimmy McDonald, like, behind the scenes of here's how a horse claps, with coconuts
Hmm.
and that kind of stuff. And then thinking of like the wire that they hit to make like some of the Star Wars noises, those like power line support wires and some of
Yeah.
that stuff. Cause sound is very interesting to me, and I think it's very hard. And I think it's one of those things that you're right. If they do their job right, you don't notice. And so in this
Yeah.
particular case, it was almost like it was showcased So it wasn't bad sound, and that's why I'm saying is it just I noticed it.
Yeah.
Let me stop here and say thank you to everyone watching. We appreciate it. If you haven't already, again, subscribe to Park Adventurers Club for more great content. Give us a thumbs up as it helps people find us. Now, Charlie, I have two sets of questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, this is normally in the show where we will ask trivia. That's the first round of questions. Then I want to follow it up with a bunch of questions I have about this movie that you can answer in rapid fire succession if you'd like. But the first one I want to do is I'm sorry to give you two sets of questions. The first one is trivia.
I'm ready for it.
Here we go. You know what? Here's the thing: is I was coming up with trivia, and I was thinking, you are so immersed in this world. There's no way that I could possibly think of anything that was a legitimate question to ask. Like there was that scene where Ebenezer shrunk down and he falls into the bag of the drapes, and then he's thrown out into there, and then there's a box behind him, and I was going to ask you what was on that box, and I thought that's really not fair. That's not a fair question because
I don't know that.
Yeah, it was like it said Joe's rags and something. Now I've even forgotten what it said. No, but anyway, but what I'm saying is, like, I didn't want to ask you something that was a minor detail in it, so I want to ask you things that are like fair to ask. So we only asked five questions, and I think you'll get them all right.
We'll see. I've come into these trivia things being like, oh, I got this. Here we go. And even watching as a guest, I really thought I was going to smoke it on the Tron trivia, and I just got schooled. So I've long since learned to let my hubris go. We'll see how it goes.
Well, last week Stephanie went 5 for 5. Not to say that but again, we were talking for an hour about a 22-minute children's show. So So again, there weren't a lot of details in that one to pick out either. Again, you're very versed in this. So when this movie opens up, Marley is dead.
As a doornail.
What year is it?
18. Let's see. Let me do my math. 1836.
Correct. That is correct. Because Scrooge is signing his death certificate, and on his death certificate it says 1836, and then they say 7 years has passed.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and then they reference that it's 1843, which is interesting because this was written in 1843, and this blew my mind. So, like, this is actually set in present day for Dickens. That is mind-boggling because it feels like a period piece, and yet it was a period of the now. That was then. It's so crazy that it was written in the same year that, like, it's now. It's happening right now. So a lot of those things probably resonated more with the people that were there. This next question is totally unfair, but it has nothing to do with this movie, but it has to do with Jim Carrey.
Okay.
What is Jim Carrey's highest grossing movie to date?
Oh, man. I want to say it's going to be one of the Ace Venturas, but in all likelihood, it's going to be one of the Sonics.
Dude, you're on fire. It was Sonic 3.
Yeah, I was going to say it was either 1 or 3.
What's so funny is, like, Sonic 1, I felt fell flat, and then here comes 2 and then 3, and then, like, there was like a spin-off series. Like, it's like, what?
I didn't know there was a series.
I believe there was a spin-off series.
My son went through a real hard Sonic phase for a little bit.
But it's
not
funny
the games,
that
just the movies.
That in my time you had some big time actors like Kevin Costner, like Tom Hanks, like Harrison Ford, like Jim Carrey, that were like in everything, and these huge seemingly box office blowouts. But like the fact that like Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is his highest grossing movie, especially since this man said he would never do sequels again after Ace Ventura 2.
Yeah, that's
so.
You don't want to go down what he said and what he ended up doing, because he said, "I'll only come back to Hollywood if there's a golden script," and it was like, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a golden script. That's what you said. That's a golden script.
So I think I think you hit that one. I think you're 2 for 2 there. All right, so you're doing good. There is, they go back to, in the Ghost of Christmas Past, they go back to his old school. And there is a wagon that comes by because they jump out of the way of the wagon. And the ghost says that, like, these are just shadows of what has been. They don't recognize that you're even here, or you can't, they can't see you. What song were they singing when the wagon came by?
Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too, and God bless you and send you Happy New Year. I don't know what the name of the song is, but I know that's the song.
I can't believe you know that's the song. I can't believe you know that's the song.
I only know that part of the song because of that scene, but I don't
Here
know what
we
the
come
name
a
of the song is.
caroling.
Oh, okay.
Parentheses wassailing song.
The wassail song? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Dude, unreal.
I'm glad to be doing well for once.
I did not see that coming at all. So you are 3 for 3. This one's going to be pretty easy for you.
Okay.
It's a two-parter. Ebenezer's sister's name. What is her name in this? And what other name was she referred to in a different telling of the story? She's always this name, but in one telling, she was something else.
Her name is Fan, and he calls her Fanny. In a different telling of the story, are we talking like the Muppet one? I don't know that she was part of the Muppet one.
Was she in the Muppet one?
I don't think she was. What version?
Her name was Lottie.
In what version?
Referred to as Lottie, in the FX version of A Christmas Carol.
Oh man, dude, talk about dark! Holy God, that one. I've only seen that one once. I will only watch that one once. That one destroyed me. That was like 3 really tough days to watch that through. I've blocked
that was
out
2019
most of that movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
I watched it during the pandemic. It was extra dark.
And that was a BBC
beautiful
adaptation.
Was it?
On FX,
Guy Pearce. So they were all British. Just absolutely beautiful and haunting and traumatic and expertly done. More realistic of a retelling to like this is how people would actually behave, something that we can grasp in the modern day. But man, was it dark. That wasn't like a ghost story. That was just like reliving therapy. Like it was so dark.
I feel like I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like I've known that feeling in something where I've watched it and gone, this is really good, and I never want to see it again. Schindler's List is probably on that for me. Is like, it's really good, and I just don't want to have to watch it again. And just it's just hard.
Yeah.
And it's just like I get the art of it, but again, there's something else that I'm thinking of though that I was like, it was really good, but I don't ever want to see it again.
But never again.
Yeah, so Lottie was the name. So you got that. You knew Fan. I feel like that's fair enough there. The last question, again, because you're 4 for 4, you could go undefeated.
Let's see.
What month, and if you know it, date and year, was Ebenezer born?
Oh, I don't know this one. I don't know this one. I want to say, let's see. I want to say like 1798. No, he would have been older than that because he's probably in his 70s. I don't know that one.
February 7th, 1786.
1786. Okay.
Now, here's what bothers me about that, if I can. So you were almost there, but they just here it was painfully like normally again a number or whatever I wouldn't go into, but A, you
Hmm.
seem to know everything about the man, and B, they just were painfully referring to it on the tombstone, because as they go to the tombstone, he's like swipes it, it's Ebenezer Scrooge, and then they back away and he swipes it and you see his birth date, and then he starts to swipe and he's like, no, don't do it. And he swipes again because he's going to show the death date. And he's like, no, don't do it.
Hmm.
And to show it again, no, don't do it. Like, too much. But it was February 6th, 1786, which makes him 57 years old. But he walks
Yeah.
around like he's 80. I
Well,
hope. I
that
mean, and maybe it's of the time, but he just looks. And again, as an older American, I fear this.
well, no,
I fear like, am I
86
going to be
to
that at
43.
57? Oh my God.
No, 86. He was born in 86, and it's 1786, and this is
1786 is
1843.
1843. So it's 43 plus 14 years.
Wait. 1843 minus 1786. Wow, 57.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah.
Right?
Well, so they did a
Now if
version
you
of this,
like
a
if you think about the
musical.
George C. Scott version,
Yeah.
okay. If you think of the Michael
Yeah.
Caine version, sure. But like this
Yeah.
version of it, he looks like he's about to turn to dust.
Yeah, he
I'm
looks
sorry, go
really
ahead.
old and crotchety. Well, they did a version of A Christmas Carol with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds that was a musical
Yes.
on Apple TV. I can't remember what it was, but they joke about that, and they were like, "How old?" Because he's talking about Scrooge, and they were like, "How old is he?" And he's something like that. He was like, "I'm 40," and that's the whole gag is it with the hair and everything. And as they're sitting around talking about it, and they're like, it's just different times. And he said, yeah, when Scrooge died, the leading cause of death was January. So he didn't have much longer to go anyway, because it's, 1843. So, but like, that has become a running gag in my household is the leading cause of death is January. And we say it for an entire month. Every time it gets below like 65 here in LA, it's like, this is dumb. I'm just going to freeze to death and die. Yeah, Spirited. This is another really great one. Got some really fun twists and turns, and I'll never not enjoy Will Ferrell. Like anything he wants to do.
You know what's funny is I think some people got over Will Ferrell. I think my son was one of them, and I'm like, I love Will
Not me.
Ferrell. I saw the
Yep.
Funny or Die tour. He brought out Ron Burgundy. I'm like, yes, let's have more of that.
Yeah.
He did his like I think like the Ballad of Ricky Bobby, the Talladega Nights movie, and Step Brothers, and
Hmm.
are two of my favoriteest movies next to Elf. Like all of them are
Yeah.
amazing. And
I can
so
see that.
yeah.
I mean, he was in the Jonas Brothers Christmas movie, and that was epic and
No
beautiful and amazing.
spoilers. You're spoiling that movie for me now because I haven't seen it
Oh,
yet.
I'm not telling you what happens. I'm just saying
Okay.
I enjoy. I'll what again. Joe Jonas, same thing. I don't care what he does. I'm there for it. But Will Ferrell has a cameo, and he's the best part because he's Will Ferrell.
Okay. I was thinking about Wedding Crashers. Ma,
Meatloaf.
you want some meatloaf? Ma.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter what he does. He just makes it. He makes it all better.
All right.
So
So
that was a great version anyway.
yeah, we're running long here, so let me hit you with some of
Yeah.
these questions that came up with me. In the dialogue, as Marley is flying out the window, he says that you'll be visited by three ghosts, and he says, the first bell on this night, the second bell on the next night, and he says the
Hmm.
next night and the next night as if it's going to be three nights and not all in the same night.
Yeah.
What's with that?
That's from the book, and so because it was like, oh, you've already missed this opportunity. Christmas is the time for forgiveness. This is when you can turn it all around. And he's like, well, I'm going to be like 2 days behind. So when he finally comes back and he's rejuvenated after Christmas future, and he goes to the window and he screams to the kid down there, he says, what day is it? And he says, it's Christmas Day. And he's like, oh my gosh, they did it all in one night. Of course they can. Like this, they were great. And like, it was a surprise to him. That's like it's not just that he's not going to die, it's that he's got this opportunity on Christmas to make it right. So he runs around and like buys the turkey and he goes and checks in
Oh, I'm
on
familiar with the story. I got you, but I'm
yeah,
just saying, like,
all the
yeah.
stuff,
Um,
like all these things that he fixed.
So the other thing is that in Wizard of Oz, it's a very similar situation of I go through this learning curve and then I come out of it and I'm back where I
Mhm.
was and thank God I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. Um, we don't know, and there are a lot of stories where we don't know, was it a real, was it a dream, what exactly happened here. And in this one, you would think this could have just been a dream of his, or as he told Marley, like an undigested piece of beef or whatever.
Mhm.
But he's never been to Bob Cratchit's house, nor would he have paid attention to the fact that Tiny Tim was his son, etc., etc. So then, are we to believe this actually happened to him?
I think so, and that's I would say so, and I've seen the same kind of a debate with, was it actually him making the change, or did something happen to him through magic to force the change? Because the the action of each of the three spirits sets off with a touch. So like he's going to fall before he flies with Christmas past, and he says, "Bear a touch of my hand here and you'll be upheld in more than this." And like, okay, that changes his soul and makes him accept the lessons of the past. And then with the Christmas present, touch my robe, like it has to be through touch, and he falls into the hand of the Christmas future, and then he's like holding on to the finger. So it's all through touch. Is this actually him repenting, or are they just magicking him to be different now? So it's like the same thing. What do you want to believe? It's kind of left ambiguous of like, is it real? Is it not? Is it magic? Is it him? It's up to your own consideration.
Gotcha. Speaking of which, did you ever watch a TV show called Pair of Kings? It was on Disney.
No.
Oh, it was a Disney like a you know around the time it was post Hannah Montana. It was one of those Disney Channel half hour shows. Pair
Hmm.
of Kings. This kid that's on the far right, he is the voice of Tiny Tim.
Ah, okay.
So keeping it in the Disney family, they were probably like, "Hey, we
Yeah.
need a kid. Well, we got one on lot 3, so let's go ahead and
Yeah, just
go
just
grab
grab
that
him.
kid." Yeah.
Already
Um,
filled out the W-9, so why not, put him to work.
He's already on the payroll. We might as well. Um, so when we meet the Ghost of Christmas Present, he says, "I have many brothers." He says, "I have 842 brothers." Because when I originally picture this, I picture it as like all of mankind is my brother, but that's not what's happening here. He says, "I have
Yeah.
842 brothers," and so basically, he is saying, because this is 1843, and again, this is, dude, I didn't look this up. I just finally, like, it clicked in my head, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, it's 1843 when this is written. He has 842 brothers,
Hmm.
and so I was like, wait a minute, is he like Father Time? Like, is he like the baby New Year turns into Father Time? Like, is he
He's
just the year 1843? Is that what he is
No,
as the
he's just
present?
that day. He is the Christmas present. He is the one day. There have been,
Oh,
if we're counting it
Christmas.
as 25th of December, and we're not going to get into the whole thing about born in April and all that, but if we're
Sure.
saying Jesus was actually born December 25th in Bethlehem, there have been 1842 December 25ths since that happened, and each one is one day, and his life on this earth is one day, right?
Dude,
Yeah.
dude.
See,
Wow.
that's what I mean. Like the dialogue, these little things that he
Yeah.
buries in so much bullshit.
So why does he shrink? Why do they make him shrink? That's not in the book.
That's not in the book. It's just something Zemeckis did because rather than with all three spirits, he's supposed to, like, the first one he flies, and the other two he just kind of walks from room to room, and they just show him around. And like even in the Muppet Christmas Carol, he just kind of walks from place to place. They needed to have something for the trailers, so they shrunk him down to get him into Old Joe's shack. And in the book, he just kind of runs away from the Ghost of Christmas Future, and he stumbles through the back alleys of London, and no one can see him. And this is how he stumbles across those people who
The
are talking about a funeral, and then Mrs. Dilber selling off all the bedclothes and everything. He just kind of stumbles from place to place, being chased by this grim specter of death. And the shrunk down, the sliding over the roofs and all that, that's all I think could have been trimmed.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, it just didn't make any sense to me why we were doing all this anyway. The last question I have for you is there's a weird scene in this where Marley is like Marley's running out the window. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go, man. And so he goes to see Marley is out the window, and when he gets there, he looks out the window, and it's like the back of the graveyard scene from the Haunted Mansion, with
Mm-hmm.
all of these ghosts that are out there. I'm like, why did we do this scene?
That was in the book. That's something that was, there's all of these people. It's not just Marley who procured this opportunity to come and see him, and he's the only one who's chained, and this is unique to Scrooge. It's all people who act this way. We're all fettered in chains of our own design by our foul acts in life.
Link by
So he just
link.
got that moment to see everybody and everything, and I think that connects it to a larger scope of like, it's not just that Scrooge is this one terrible guy and that's it. It's that this happens to everybody and it's all over the place.
Yeah, I guess it's just as I was watching that, you explaining it to me. Okay, I get it,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them are at different levels of chains.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's ever clearly explained in any telling, even this one, what this
Yeah.
means.
Yeah.
So
I
again,
don't think
maybe
it
the
is.
book is clearer, or maybe it's just because you've looked into it more, or maybe you've come to your own conclusions, or maybe Charles Dickens told you about it. I don't know, but and I know you've researched it a lot more, but stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's kind of like the backstory in a lot of Disney things, whether it's Disney Springs or Pleasure Island and whatever. That you go and you
Mm-hmm.
look at it and you're like, I didn't know that was the backstory. It makes sense now, but why didn't you tell me that was the backstory? I feel like there's a
Yeah.
lot of that in this, and as old as the story is, and as many tellings as there been, when Papa Smurf did this story, he didn't explain it any better.
Yeah. I don't think there is necessarily an explanation. And there's like, with this in particular, because it shows up um in a few different retellings in different ways, but it's not something, it's, I think it's maybe one or two lines in the book. Like, I can't even remember the specifics of what it is. But it's like such a quick throwaway, so it's not usually included in things, and they don't really need to explain it. It's just kind of somebody who shows up, and then he just sees it, and the window shuts and it's over. Like, it's a throwaway, so most of the time it's left out, and when it is brought in, you're right, it's a little confusing.
Well, but I mean, again, I feel like we've talked a lot about it, and I feel like I've gotten a lot more education on this. But in general, I don't love this story in general. Like, you are
Mm-hmm.
into this story. I don't love
Yeah.
this story in general. And whether it's Mr. Magoo or Bill Murray or the
Yeah.
Flintstones or Barbie, I don't, any of them in particular. And there are, again, between TV episodes, TV specials, movies, there's probably over 100 easily tellings
Yeah.
of this story. I guess I just, maybe I never stopped down enough to think about it in general. So,
Yeah, I mean,
anything,
it's well, I will add something. If you are interested, not even so much in this story itself, but just in kind of how it came to be, there's a movie with Dan Stevens called The Man Who Invented Christmas, which is fantastic. And it's about the making of A Christmas Carol, and the world, about Charles Dickens, the world he came from. Dan Stevens is entirely too good looking of a guy to play Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens is a weird looking dude, and he had like 5 kids, so he was always tired, I imagine. Like I don't think he ever got bags out from under his eyes. Um, and Dan Stevens is a really good looking guy and does a really great job at playing someone he looks nothing like. But it was a really good film, and it kind of sets this story. It doesn't go too much into the story overall. It kind of has these little parables out to it, but
Dan
it's more
Stevens
about
is
where
in
it
like
came
Beauty and the
from.
Beast. Dan Stevens.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, good looking guy, and
Legion.
Chucky D is a weird looking dude, and I don't think. I mean, I think they went for the acting prowess, not for the look-alike resemblance.
And what's the name of it?
The Man Who Invented Christmas.
Well, but see, that's this guy. So I don't really know.
We could go down this rabbit hole. I
No,
got
no,
like
no,
a
no. I don't
a
want to hear
whole
it.
paper
La
I
la
can
la la.
read you
La
guys
la 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 la. I don't want to hear
with
it. I don't want to hear it.
the
I don't want to hear it.
connection
I
to
don't want to hear it. La la la
Coca-Cola.
la la. Santa, he knows when I've been naughty and he knows when I've been nice, so I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah. So again, we've gone a little bit long here, but I think it was worth it to get into this. And so, is there anything else before I give a couple words and then we get final thoughts from you?
No, I mean, I could, if you don't stop me, I could talk about this until next Christmas. So
Don't stop me now. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching. We always appreciate you guys hanging out with us on A Look on the Plus Side and everything that we've got going on the Park Adventurers Club. You're here tonight. And then we will be airing the Happiest Days, which is Shannon's show, on Friday night. And then Sunday night, we will not have a show because it's, it's Thanksgiving weekend. And so we just figured you'll be with your families. We'll be with our families. We're going to take a Sunday off and we'll come back the following Sunday with another park show, but always come and hang out with us for A Look on the Plus Side on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. because we've got a lot of other Christmas content. We're going to be doing the third installment, which came out today, I think, of the Prep and Landing series. And so we're going to be talking about that with Patrick. We're going to be talking about One Magic Christmas. We're going to be talking about the Miracle on 34th Street, which we've never talked about before with Stephanie. So we got a lot of great stuff coming back. And again, I want to give a huge shout out to our pack. We love the pack. That's our Park Adventurers Club. If you want to join the pack, we actually have a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/GoPack. And thanks to all of our pack members and including our Zebra Mezzanine and our Treasure Room supporters. We appreciate you guys. So come back for all of this content. Come back for, just come to the channel, see all the stuff that Charlie's, has done on here too. We've talked about the Halloween Town stuff. We talked about Ice Age. You and I ranked all the Muppet movies. So, hang out with us. We appreciate it. But Charlie, now is the time. Now is the best time because I'm going to ask you, as the executive of all things Christmas Carol and Disney, I'm sure you have friends that know you are both. If they came to you and said, hey, I'm looking to go onto Disney Plus and pull up this Disney Christmas Carol, that looks like a little fun jaunt for the holiday season. I guess overall, what would you say? Would you recommend this movie?
I would absolutely recommend this movie. But I'm also the weird kind of guy who would recommend reading the book. Like I think this is if you don't like this story, this is the quintessential version. So if you don't like this version, then the story, I guess, isn't for you. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Muppet Christmas Carol, and I love that. That was the one I grew up on. That and Mickey's Christmas Carol. So like I accept all different versions, but I think this one is my favorite, and specifically because it's so faithful to the story. The performances are fantastic. The animation style, even though today it doesn't necessarily hold up as well, in that moment, in that month before Avatar came out, it was really impressive to see what they could do with world building. So if you kind of put yourself in that time, or if you put yourself in 1843, it resonates on different levels. So yes, I would absolutely recommend this.
Well, I love when you say it's like, oh, maybe you should read the book, and it's like if you think you hate this episode or this version of the movie, wait till you read the book. I'm thinking of Eugene Levy from Vacation doing that. But I would say before rewatching this, I wouldn't have recommended this one because I would have felt like it's the goofy, uncanny valley, creepy version of it. But after really digging in and rewatching this with a critical eye, I think it's a very good version of A Christmas Carol. So I would recommend it if you're looking for a new version to watch and you've never seen this one. I don't think we really had any spoilers outside of how you already know the story of A Christmas Carol. I feel like everybody does, but I think that if I'm actually going to like put my like reputation on the line to represent something for A Christmas Carol, this is the one that I would preach because I do love this one the most. Not this one. This is not the one we're talking about. That's the one that Charlie says don't watch.
It's
but
a lot.
Yeah, but I would recommend that if you're just looking for one in general, Muppets is the one. And maybe next year you and I will like do the Muppet one and get like into that one. That would be kind of cool to do too. But honestly, this one I appreciated it much more on this rewatching. So you guys let us know in the comments what you think, what your favorite version of A Christmas Carol is, or if you've watched this one, or if you have a hang up on this image mover digital animation style, or how you feel about all that. But we would love for you guys to leave some comments, let us know how it is, and then come back and hang out with us for some more great content. And thanks for taking a look on the plus side. Appreciate you, Charlie. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.